Hi, my name is Ron Benning. I'm glad that you are taking the time to watch this video. And I gotta be honest with you, it may run 10 or 15 minutes, but I think that it's really important for you to understand the reasons why I decided to go to eXp and how those could apply to you. See, one of the things that you're gonna find, I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. I just wanna kind of tell you where I'm coming from and how I got here. I got into the real estate business in 1989. I had bought some real estate. It didn't go very well. I was a recent college graduate and I thought to myself, wow, I could probably do a lot better job. What if you just gave people the information that you would have wanted? So I'd love to be able to tell you I was an overnight sensation, but I wasn't. And the fact of the matter is that not everybody is an overnight sensation. What I have found in all the years that I've been in the business is that there are more superstars that are developed than are born great. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't help to have natural born talent, but I have helped turn some people that were fairly average into very solid producers, and I'm hoping I can help do that for you as well. Didn't get my first transaction till about 5 months into the business. And that doesn't necessarily mean, and maybe some of you got your first one in the first week or two or whatever. I guess that really doesn't matter. But one of the things I've learned over the years is I'm pretty analytical. In fact, one of my team members was teasing me the other day saying that I was a little bit eccentric and that I love to do all the things that he hates to do. And that's one of the reasons he liked to be on my team. But I like to figure out how things work. Okay, so what happened? 5 months in the business, did my first deal. A little bit of light clicked on, and honestly, I just wasn't getting the help or mentorship that I needed. And so I started trying to figure it out on my own. I ended up doing another 4 or 5 transactions at the end of that first year. Which means the light bulb had started to come on, but I really didn't have anybody to emulate. I'm a huge believer in modeling, and I'll talk a little bit more about how I've done that in my career a little bit later. I got to that point where I was starting to recognize that if I really wanted to do better, I needed to surround myself with people that were doing better. I was getting to the point near the end of that first year where I was probably doing almost as well as anybody but the owner in the company, and I really didn't feel like I knew much. So at that point, I went over to Remax. There was a lot of good producers in that office, and as an agent, it was a good company for me at the time. And I learned a lot in that next year, and I started to produce a lot. Well, things don't always go as planned, and next thing I know, I find out my office was closing. So in 1992, when I was 25 years old, me and a couple of my friends decided to open a Remax office, and I was involved in that company from 1992 until 2006. For the first 10 years, like I say in the other videos, so I'll kind of keep it abbreviated, I worked with partners in the business. For the last 5 years of that, I worked by myself. I bought my partners out. I grew that office from 22 agents to 95 agents. So if you're thinking that you're somebody who wants to be a team leader and really wants to grow your business, I know what it takes to do that. Here's the problem with the traditional model. So if you're somebody who's thinking that you want to be a team leader or a broker owner of an office, I busted my butt for many years to get to that point. But in the traditional model, here's what happens. You end up taking all the risk. My overhead was more than $100,000 a month, and all that was great. In 2005, I wasn't too worried about it because my company in May of that year had done 100 transactions. A lot of my agents were on splits. But then what happens when you take all the risk? You take all the risk. So what ended up happening? The market started to collapse. And over a period of 6 months or so, we lost 75% of the revenue that we had coming in. And all of a sudden, I had been a company where I had opened up a second office, paid off all of my debt, and had money in the bank, a good amount of money in the bank. I thought I was doing everything right. But when those kind of markets come along, it changes everything. And pretty soon I found myself in trouble. I did end up selling the company, and then I went back to, after about a year and a half of being on the management team of the company that bought my company out. And that time I had recruited about 20 agents to the organization. I decided to focus on selling real estate again. I really hadn't sold actively for about 5 years. So it was really important for me to try to make some money fast. And I used modeling. I talk a little bit more about that in the sponsor when we talk in person or on a Zoom meeting. I can explain a little bit more about that. But here's the bottom line. I told somebody I knew what I was going to do. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. But one thing I know, if we don't write a goal down and tell somebody, the chances are not very good that we're ever going to accomplish it. So I told somebody that I knew would hold me accountable to the goal. And then I went about modeling people who were not close by me. What I found is if I picked up the phone and I wanted to call some of the top producers that were doing, and I had figured out bank repos, that was the time where that was where I was going to be able to make some quick money, the kind of money I needed to. None of the people in town wanted to tell me anything. Well, why would they? We're competitors. And what you find is that even within the same company, people generally in traditional models don't want to tell you what's working because they're afraid that you're going to displace them and that there isn't enough business there for everybody. Anyway, jump forward a little bit. In my time in management, I was fortunate enough to be an eXp legend, Brent Gove's manager. I was his manager at the time that he left RE/MAX to go over to Keller Williams. So I knew Brent pretty well. I felt like we could confide in each other. And sometimes even smart people make dumb decisions. And that smart person is me. I made a dumb decision. About 4 years ago, Brent Gove approached me and he said, "Hey, Ron, I remember the way you think about things. I remember the way you do systems. I remember the way you added people to the office. You should check out this new company that I'm with because I think you would really thrive here." Well, at that point, I had decided that I was going to open my own independent office. And I had had my own independent office open, I don't know, maybe had 5 or 6 agents. And I was doing pretty well for myself selling. And I just was not open to hearing what Brent wanted to tell me about. He sent me one of the videos I have in close, which is the model explained. And I watched about 5 minutes of it and I didn't even finish it. And that was really a big mistake. But the thing was, at the time, I wasn't ready to hear that message, I guess. And that's the funny thing in life. Timing can be everything. You have to be receptive to it. And at that point, eXp was new to the market, and a lot of people were talking a lot of nonsense about the way you didn't have any support and multi-level, all this stuff. And the reality of it is, the mistake I made was not looking at the information with an open mind. Nonetheless, a little bit of time goes by and I'm still finding myself 6 months, a year later with about the same amount of agents. And I was really struggling with the idea of, well, why can't I get back to where I was? When I was 36 years old, I had 95 agents working for me. And, I really felt good about myself and I loved what I did. Every day I went to work. I never thought, oh, God, I got to go to work today, because what I really loved doing was the relationships with my agents, figuring out how stuff worked, building systems for the company. We had a great synergy within the office. The staff really had an ownership feeling in the way that we had set things up. Was really one of the best times in my life. So what happened is, one of my top producers in my independent office, about a year and a half before I decided to come to eXp, went over to eXp. Then I doubled down on my ego, and that's the problem. Sometimes we let our ego get us into trouble. And so what I did as I looked at some of the tools and systems that eXp was providing, and I said, well, I can provide those things too. And so for a few months, maybe about 6 months, I got some of the same systems. The database system was the same. I got the escrow coordination system. And I started thinking, well, how could I copy some of the things that eXp was doing? And at one point, it finally hit me. I was seeing my overhead was getting bigger and bigger and bigger again. And see, the thing is, when you're going to be the broker, there's a reason why they call you the broker, because you're usually a lot more broke than any of your top producing agents. And it started to, I really did some soul searching. I went away for the weekend with my wife, and I actually was starting to have a lot of self-doubt. And I started to think to myself, wow, I wonder if I was a victim of the Peter principle. And for those of you that don't know what that means, you reach the level of your own incompetence, at which point you will fail. And for a period of a week or so, I really started to feel like, well, maybe my best days were behind me. When you let yourself, see, I believe in life, and it's everything, whether it's your business relationships, your relationships with your family, your spouse, your friends, your religion. The natural order of the universe is decay. And what that means is your systems, your business, your relationships, your faith, your health, it's always getting a little bit better, a little bit worse every day, but it can't stay the same. So I started thinking about, well, why was I successful at 36 and then I'm struggling now 10 years later with a lot more experience? And it came to me. When I exploded the growth of my RE/MAX organization, I had staff. I had people reviewing the files. I had administrators. I had escrow coordination people. And what I had done is I had created a work environment that brought out the best in all of the people around us. But by having those people that I knew cared within the organization, I was focusing on the stuff I was passionate about. And I figured it out finally. And like I say in the beginning, sometimes smart people do dumb things. That makes me one of them. And it occurred to me, I can't be successful again because I'm spending all my time doing the stuff I don't want to do. I'm doing file review. I'm doing 1099s. I'm doing broker's demands. I'm dealing with all this stuff that was the stuff that never really excited me. Solving the problem, mentoring the people, helping people to be doing better and changing their lives. That was stuff that I was passionate about. And I realized I didn't have the time to do any of that. Not only that, the further I went down that rabbit hole again of building a traditional office, it made me realize I was heading back in the same dangerous position that I was the last time the market was good. Market might be great today, but if you build a traditional office or a franchise and the market turns, during that turn that I sold my company in, probably 30 to 40% of the companies went out of business. And they were companies that ran well. It's just the revenue can change that much that fast. That was the day where I started thinking maybe I need to take another look at this eXp model. I actually talked to somebody about being a sponsor, good person, almost signed on the dotted line. And then I got to that point in the sign-up process where it says, this is a really important thing. Have you really thought about that? Ironically enough, one of the great, I probably trained 200 to 300 agents over the years. And one of the agents that was a new agent that came in my organization was somebody who was at eXp and somebody who was doing really well. And I talked to him one day and he says, I remember the things that you did. I remember what you're capable of. And if you just did those things again here, you could be really successful. And so I started looking at the difference. And I, in fairness to the first person I talked to, I went, back to that person and I said, tell me a little bit about how you can help me build the business. And then there really wasn't any good answers. Okay, and so in this case, I'm hoping to be your sponsor, and I think there's lots of great things that I can do. When you get through all the videos and we talk more and we talk about what your passions are and what your goals are, I can probably give you a good idea how to get there if you're willing to work hard for it. But it wasn't just my direct sponsor. I looked at the people in our organization who would be a part of my team. See, this is the thing that I didn't get the first time I was looking at eXp. What we say on our team is a high tide raises all boats. This is the first time in my career at any company that I've ever worked with where all of those people in the senior leadership of my team have a vested interest in my success. And while initially I was closed-minded because I thought, well, gee, this is like some kind of multi-level thing, it didn't really occur to me how important that is in our company culture, because when I call these people, any one of them, they have been really receptive to getting back to me. When I say that I need some help with something, they get back to me. And we've got some serious players on our team. Tom Dave's number one in the world with Keller Williams 7 years in a row. Amir Kakovich, who's my direct sponsor, he is great with systems and tools. A lot like me, we figure out all the little niches and stuff that other people aren't seeing, arbitrage. We've got Don Yoakum. He was a multiple office Keller Williams owner. We got Randy Bird. We got Brent Gove. We've got a few other legends a little bit further up in the senior management. But what I'm trying to tell you is no matter what it is that you're interested in doing, there's one of us or maybe several of us who have already got that stuff figured out. And we don't make any money unless you're successful. And that started to occur to me. And that was one of the things that really was attractive to me. The idea that I was going to have, since modeling already made sense to me, and I already had all these people that had gone before me. The other thing that really helped is that we know intellectually that these things work if you do the work. But when you start to know people, and here's the painful part of the story. I think when Brent Gove approached me that first time, I think he had a few hundred people on his team. When I talked to him about the week or so that I joined, I think he was at about the 5,000 mark on his team. Recently, when I had a conversation with him, he had just crossed the 10,000 agent barrier in the team. And when I was thinking about that, it blew me away. But I think what was most painful to me is seeing that progression from my original phone call when I was closed to hearing about the model until the time I came on, how hugely he had moved ahead. And I had been producing well. You know, I make as much money as I want to make as a salesperson because I'm at a point in my life where my income is pretty good. I'm not living extravagantly, and I don't need to make a lot more than I do. So, yeah, the bottom line though, but I looked at it and said, I was like on that hamster wheel, and I was just, doing my 2, my 3, my 4 deals, however many deals you're trying to do that you need to do to pay your bills every month. But guess what happens at the end of the year? It's a new year. You got to start saving for taxes again, and you're hustling just as hard every year, year after year. Okay. When we start looking at this model, what was different? So let's kind of jump forward. I started looking into things. I started looking into the revenue share, and I started looking into the support systems, and this was everything for me. And when I finally saw it, and it took me 3 years to see it, I couldn't unsee it. And from the moment I finally saw it and I finally got it, I said, I got to do this. And I knew if I was going to be successful in it, that I'd have to go all in. I made some serious decisions. I spent about $30,000 to close down an office that was actually making money at the time. Wasn't making a lot of money, but I could see that if I spent one more minute doing what I was doing, that I could see people that I already knew in the system that were moving ahead and moving ahead in exponential speed compared to what I could do. Not only that, I knew intellectually that there was going to be another market turn at some point not too far down the road. And I didn't want to be the one stuck in the musical chairs without a seat when I was the one having all the risk. You see, in this model, and that's another thing that had occurred to me, all the reasons why I couldn't get back to the success I had were being solved in this model by the company taking a fair cut out of my commissions with a cap. And as a team leader, they were taking on 80 to 90% of the administrative role, which is stuff that I'm good at, creating systems, but not the things I want to spend my time doing. Okay, so what ended up happening? I made the decision. I went all in. There was a story that I heard one time about Alexander the Great. He wanted his army to fight hard, so they burned the boats when they got to the destination, so there was no going back. Well, that's the way I felt. If I was going to close the office that I had been running at what it cost me to do it, there was no turning back. And I knew that there was no reason I'd want to turn back, because what I really wanted, I wanted to get back to being excited about what I was doing. You see, if you want to go to work for somebody on a team and you want them to be your mentor or sponsor, and they're only doing it for the money, they're never going to do the job that you need them to do. When you are working with people that are excited, that like people, that want to help people and love what they're doing, it makes all the difference in the world. That's what I found in the group of people that I went to work with. And more than 30 years into the business, I am now at the point where I find myself, today's a Sunday, I have spent a good portion of the day, which would have otherwise been my day off in months or years past, working on systems. I find myself getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I'm just so excited about the things that I'm putting together. I see team members that are implementing what I have put together, and I'm changing lives, and that is oh so motivating for me. But at the end of the day, no matter what anybody tells you, you have to see it for yourself. And then you need to understand just how important the role of your sponsor and the organization that surrounds your sponsor is. I just love trying to figure out things work. When I have one of my team members that calls me up, I had one call me up the other day, told me how I had changed his life, told me how every day he looks back to that day of our first conversation as that was the day that his life made a turn for the better. I want to hear a lot more of those stories because that's really what motivates me and drives me. If you like what you're hearing, watch the rest of the videos. Talk to anybody in my organization. I think you're going to find that I pretty much walk the talk the way that I say that I will. And I hope to be talking to you soon. And I hope that you will be here at eXp on the Ron Benning real estate team soon and start building towards your future.